Today is Thursday, January 27th. We're talking about an open seat on the U.S. Supreme Court, who is retiring, and when a new justice is expected to take over. Also, what to know about a new version of COVID-19 that's been detected in the U.S. Plus, a SpaceX rocket booster on a collision course with the moon. Why Spotify is removing a Grammy-winning musician from its platform. And this is your chance to own artwork from Picasso. Sort of. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. U.S. Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer is reportedly planning to retire at the end of the current term this summer. The 83-year-old justice has been on the bench since 1994, when then-President Bill Clinton appointed him. Now it'll be up to President Biden to pick his replacement. During the presidential campaign, Biden promised if he had the chance, he would nominate the High Court's first black woman. But so far, he hasn't commented about who that might be. Whoever he chooses, Democratic leaders in the Senate say they'll work to confirm them quickly, just in case they lose the majority after the November midterms. Remember, right now the Senate is split up between 50 Democrats and 50 Republicans, and Vice President Harris is the tie-breaking vote. So if all Democrats support Biden's nominee, they could confirm them without Republican support if needed. That would also make it the first time a 50-50 Senate has confirmed a justice. It used to take 60 votes, but Republicans scrapped that rule in 2017 when they were in charge. That helped them confirm the last 3 justices President Trump nominated, since none of them got a full 60 votes. Since Breyer tends to lean a little more to the left anyway, President Biden's pick won't do much to change the court's ideological balance. But it does guarantee Biden will have a long-lasting legacy, since Supreme Court justices have lifetime appointments. Justice Breyer is expected to make a formal statement announcing his retirement today. The U.S. and NATO are still hoping to negotiate with Russia to avoid what could be the largest invasion since World War II. This week, they sent written proposals in response to Russia's demands. Russia wants NATO to rule out expanding any further east, to roll back its presence in Eastern Europe, and to keep weapons systems out of Ukraine. Well, the U.S. and NATO have not been willing to meet any of those demands, and Secretary of State Antony Blinken says even in their new proposals, they did not make any concessions on those key issues. But the U.S. and NATO did bring up some new proposals. For example, the U.S. would be up to renegotiating a new nuclear treaty with Russia. NATO says it could increase communication and make sure there's transparency around military exercises, so the world is now waiting to see how Russia will respond. In the meantime, the U.S. says it's still possible Russia could invade Ukraine within days. Then the concern is that could develop into a full-scale war. More than 120,000 Russian troops are stationed along the Ukrainian border, and they've been staging military drills. So NATO says it's at least preparing for the worst, sending troops and supplies to its countries in Eastern Europe. And the U.S. is sending even more weapons to Ukraine. The third shipment should arrive this week. For now, though, Russia, the U.S., and European countries are planning even more talks, hoping to solve their differences that way. Once again, scientists are monitoring a new version of COVID-19. This one is referred to as a subvariant of Omicron, called BA2. It's been detected in dozens of countries already, including the United States. Nearly 100 cases have been found in California, New Mexico, Texas, and Washington state, though that is out of hundreds of thousands of COVID-19 infections that are being reported every day. So here, the vast majority are the original Omicron. But that's not the case everywhere. BA2 is now dominant in Denmark, and researchers there say there's evidence it's even more contagious than the already highly contagious Omicron. But so far, there does not seem to be any difference in how sick people are getting. The hospitalization rates are about the same. Also, the tests on the market should be able to detect it, and the vaccines should work at least somewhat against it. For now, the World Health Organization does not consider BA2 a so-called variant of concern, so there's not much reason to worry about this one specifically. The WHO is just asking scientists to watch and study it separately from Omicron to see if it does act any differently. As expected, the Federal Reserve decided to wait a little longer before raising interest rates, but the hikes are still coming. The Fed chairman says for now, the plan is to raise them in March. That would mean the rate hike would come almost exactly 2 years to the day after the central bank slashed rates to near zero in response to COVID-19. These days, though, the economy is a lot different. Back then, the Fed was worried about the stock market and the labor market. Now, the biggest concern for a lot of people is the rising prices of food, fuel, housing, and a lot more. So the Fed calls interest rate hikes an active tool to get inflation under control. Though long-term, higher interest rates do make it more expensive to borrow money for homes, cars, or businesses. The other thing the Federal Reserve did in response to COVID-19 was it started buying billions of dollars in treasuries and mortgage-backed bonds every month. The Fed now says it'll phase those out in March as well. Economists had some mixed reactions to the Fed's announcements. Some worry it's too late to impact high inflation. Others say they're worried the Fed may be acting too aggressively. Both concerns affected Wall Street again yesterday, and stocks ended mostly lower. More news coming up, but first, a quick break to thank our sponsor. I know the pain of trying to find a new doctor. There's a lot you have to know about them that is not always easy to find, like will they take your insurance, will they understand your needs, and when will they actually be available? ZocDoc helps you find those answers faster and easier. ZocDoc is a free app that shows you doctors who are patient-reviewed, take your insurance, and are available when you need them. For example, I'm on the hunt right now for a new dentist, and I appreciate that I can easily find options that are nearby and in-network with just one click. Plus, I can filter for things like specialty, availability, and more. I found options that can get me in the very next day if that's what I needed. Or when quality is most important, I can read through the verified patient reviews to see what other real humans had to say about their visits. Just go to ZocDoc.com/newsworthy and download the ZocDoc app for free. Then start your search for a top-rated doctor today. Many are available within 24 hours. That's ZocDoc, ZocDoc, ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. Today is International Holocaust Remembrance Day. The whole world pays tribute to and honors the estimated 6 million Jews killed during the Holocaust, along with millions of other victims of Nazism during World War II. This day marks the anniversary of the liberation of the concentration camp Auschwitz in 1945. As a turning point in history, the Holocaust was one of the most visible acts of violence and discrimination. Yet some people fear the lessons seem to fade over time. So the United Nations put this Remembrance Day in place, hoping to educate more people and hopefully prevent future genocide. And to mark the 77th anniversary, the UN is hosting several events. Because of COVID restrictions and to reach more people worldwide, most of them are online. You can see the agenda on the UN website. Plus, MTV and CBS are launching new specials to commemorate the day. Both specials follow 4 Holocaust survivors who share their harrowing stories with kids from school districts that don't teach the history of the Holocaust. An out-of-control SpaceX rocket part is reportedly on track to crash into the moon in less than 2 months. Elon Musk's space company launched the Falcon 9 rocket into space back in 2015. But after it completed the mission to send a weather satellite to space, the rocket booster did not have enough fuel to come back to Earth. So it was abandoned. And it's been just floating around in space. Now space observers agree it will crash into the far side of the moon in early March. It's being called the first unintentional case of so-called space junk hitting the moon. So what will happen to the moon? Experts seem to agree the crash will make a new crater on the moon, but there won't be significant damage beyond that. It is bringing more attention to the issue of space junk, though. NASA says the Department of Defense has tracked more than 27,000 pieces of orbital debris, aka space junk. But much more is out there that's just too small to be tracked, and all sizes of debris could cause problems for space flights. Spotify made its choice. It's picking popular podcaster Joe Rogan over folk rock star Neil Young, meaning the streaming service is taking down all of Neil Young's music from its platform. We're talking about a musician who had more than 6 million monthly listeners on Spotify with popular songs like Harvest Moon and Like a Hurricane. But he gave Spotify an ultimatum this week, saying, quote, they can have Rogan or Young, not both. If you missed it, Young posted a letter to his label on Monday, asking Spotify to remove his music and accusing the service of helping to spread what he calls life-threatening vaccine misinformation through Joe Rogan's podcast. That letter is now deleted, but as the Wall Street Journal reports, Spotify started removing Young's music last night. And apparently, it's a big deal for Young. He said in his letter that he'll lose 60% of his streaming income by pulling his music off the site. Spotify responded, saying it does have content policies in place and has already taken down thousands of podcast episodes related to COVID, and that it tries to balance both safety for listeners and freedom for creators. The decision to choose Rogan may not come as too much of a surprise, though. Remember, Spotify reportedly paid Rogan $100 million in 2020 to bring his show exclusively to Spotify. And Variety reports the Joe Rogan Experience was the #1 podcast on Spotify last year, even as it continues to cause controversy. Picasso meets crypto. some of Pablo Picasso's never-before-seen artwork will finally see the light of day through NFTs. The legendary artist's granddaughter and her son announced they are putting around 1,000 digital pieces up for sale. So art and blockchain enthusiasts alike will be able to buy the NFTs, which are all linked to a ceramic piece by Picasso from 1958. Remember, NFTs are essentially unique identifiers tied to digital assets like artwork or music. And just to be clear, people who buy these won't actually own the physical Picasso ceramic or all the rights to images showing it. They will be buying one of a limited number of digital tokens, which could then start to have value of their own. The artist's great-grandson says this is his family's way of trying to carry on Picasso's legacy. But some art experts aren't so sure. The skeptics say digital tokens are just a way to make money and not a genuine way to express art. Meanwhile, the physical ceramic piece will also be auctioned off soon. Well, that's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Thing to Know Thursday. But first, thanks to our sponsor. I'm so excited to tell you about this sponsor because I've already been using Seed's Daily Synbiotic for at least a year now, thanks to a friend's recommendation, and I too love it. It's a 24-strain prebiotic plus probiotic that supports digestive health. It supports healthy skin. It promotes heart health, and so much more. It's actually clinically and scientifically studied, so you know you're getting the real deal. When I first started taking Seed, I was pregnant, and even pregnant, I felt great. So I haven't stopped taking it since, as whole body health continues to be a priority for me. Plus, I appreciate that Seed cares about the earth. In your first purchase, you'll get a glass jar that is refillable. Then your monthly refills are delivered in compostable, biodegradable, and recyclable packaging. And right now, you can get 15% off your first month's supply of Seed's Daily Synbiotic by visiting seed.com/newsworthy or by using code newsworthy at checkout. I take mine every morning. Again, go to seed.com/newsworthy or use the code newsworthy at checkout. Now back to Thing to Know Thursday. We've been talking a lot this week about Russia and Ukraine and tensions between Russian President Putin and NATO. But what is NATO exactly? NATO stands for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. It was created in 1949 by the US, Canada, and several Western European nations after threats from the Soviet Union. These days, the alliance is made up of 30 countries, but there's actually an open-door policy, meaning any country in the Euro-Atlantic area can join if it meets NATO's requirements. Essentially, NATO was made so countries could work together to protect the people and territories of its members. So the way the group sees it, if one member of the treaty is attacked, all of them feel attacked. So their ultimate goal is to prevent a crisis from happening. That could be anything from terrorism to piracy to cyber attacks. By the way, Ukraine is actually not a member of NATO, but NATO, Europe, and the US are standing united against Russia, and they have promised to help Ukraine if Russia makes a move. All right, thank you so much for listening and sharing the show. We'll be back with much more news to know tomorrow. Until then, have a great day.